When a woman is envious or jealous of you, she will often resort to shaming tactics in order to get you to stay mediocre like she is. When a woman can accept the fact that other women are thriving and they're a little bit too lazy to do the same thing, they often resort to trying to use your past against you, where you come from, who you're associated with or who you were associated with, the kind of job you have. They try to do any little thing to try to discourage you and distract you from your purpose. This often happens with people who know you a little bit, like women who might be a cousin or auntie or, a family friend or somebody that you grew up around. When they are too familiar with you, they try to use your past against you and your relatives against you in order to make you feel like you are limited in some way. People who use shaming tactics often have very limiting beliefs and limiting way of thinking in general. They don't understand that you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. They don't understand that just because your parents was one way or because your family was one way, that doesn't mean you're going to be that same way. People who are like that look at their environment and say, because I live here, because I know these people, because I was brought up this way, I can never do this or I can never do that. But God forbid, if you decide to go against the grain of what everybody else is doing and you realize that you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances, that just because your mom didn't do anything in life, that doesn't mean you won't do anything in life, they can't accept that. And they often take every opportunity they can get to remind you of where you came from. You ever notice when people start doing well in life, they're making a little bit of money, they have a little bit of notoriety, they're kind of coming up and they're making a name for themselves, quote, in the world. And then that's when people come out of the woodwork to remind people of who they, quote, really are. They try to tell them about their past history and what they said and what they did and all this stuff. That is the way jealous spirits manifest themselves. They come out from the past. Just like today is supposed to be Halloween. Yeah, them spooky little ghouls and goblins like to come along, those little jealous spirits. They like to come along to remind you and remind people that you're not as great as you think you are. And when somebody has to go out of their way to try to tell you or remind you that you're not as great as you think you are, you absolutely are that great. It's because they have so much admiration for you that they have to dig into the past and try to find things to tarnish your reputation and your image in the eyes of other people. And when they know you a little bit, they'll often try to do that by digging into your past. They'll resort to saying things, for example, like, well, your mom struggled with this, struggled with that. When I was going through anxiety, and this is a real story for a moment, a little sidebar. Let me sip my iced coffee. When I was experiencing a little bit of anxiety back in 2015, I was going through it. It wasn't a little bit of anxiety. It was major anxiety. I was going through it for a moment. And I never forget, I was at my father's house. And one of our relatives have stopped over. It was a relative-in-law. And she saw what I was going through and how tensed up I was and how anxious I was. And she had a nerve to say to me, just be careful because your mom really didn't know how to handle stress that well either. My mom had substance abuse issues, unfortunately, which ultimately led to her getting sick, which ultimately led to her no longer being here, unfortunately. But the fact that this relative felt like she needed to remind me that because my mother couldn't manage stress and resorted to substances, that somehow, some way, I was going to go down the same path, that irked me like no other. It's because she took what she thought she knew and what she thought what she said was right, which was absolutely ignorant, and just said something out of her mouth that she shouldn't have said. And that truly irritated me. And when people see me today, knowing how, where I grew up, how things were and all of that, it doesn't match. And the only thing I can say to that is the grace of God. But with that being said, I use that as an example to tell you how people will sometimes try to use your family of origin or your circumstances or where you came from to somehow try to put you into a box of never be able to do this, never be able to do that. You'll never have a successful marriage. You know, thank God, you know, my marriage is not perfect, but me and my husband, we've been married coming up on 20 years soon. And a lot of people, you know, they look at that as if that's odd because of where I came from, because of this, because of that. And I tell you this, and I'm transparent with you because I want you to understand that just because you came from maybe a messy background, maybe your family was not the best, maybe the people who were in your life around you, you know, they didn't encourage you to be the kind of woman that you really want to be. They didn't teach you about femininity and womanhood and how to have a softer, gentle spirit. They taught you that rah-rah spirit that always kept you in trouble. Just because you were around that, that doesn't mean you have to stay in that same mode. Don't let people talk you into believing that trying to do better for yourself is some way, somehow being uppity, being bougie, not realistic. It's delusional. That's the favorite word being thrown around now, delusional. And when people say not to be delusional, while delusion, as in the spiritual way, we are not delusional. We have to be full aware of what's happening here in this world. But when it comes to your goals and your dreams and your aspirations and the person you desire to be, you cannot be so realistic to the point where you're just looking around and saying, well, I guess this is all it's going to be. No. Look to the future and know that just because of things that happen around you and where you came from, you don't have to stay stuck there. But jealous, envious, wicked people who are mediocre themselves and they don't know how to really move forward in life and try to do new things so that they can become a better person, they try to talk you out of doing new things and not becoming a better person. And then you really have to ask yourself, what is the root cause of jealousy? Like, where does it start in people? Where do people get that negative, wicked spirit of just being a hater for no reason? In my opinion, I think it is learned behavior. I think this is something, especially for women, I think this is something that is taught at a very young age. If young girls are used to seeing their mothers, you know, rolling their eyes at another woman in the street, saying little nasty things. Every time you turn around, mom has something negative to say about auntie. And I'm not saying this like as somebody who's judging. I have experienced and witnessed these things, not from my own mother, thank God, but from extended friends, extended family, people just that I was around. Every time you turn around, you know, you're riding in the car and you see a woman look nice. Who she thinks she is. Yeah, and giving her the skunk eye. Like, this is the little hater things that women do. And that is learned a lot of times, even with little girls. I'll never forget, I used to work in a retail store. And these little girls, they was in there. You can tell, like, if you lived in the hood or you lived in the city, you can tell the neighborhood kids where they just roaming around at all kinds of odd hours of the night. It's like going on 10 o'clock. Why are there a group of you all here in the store by yourselves, looking the way you're looking, acting crazy? So it was these little girls traipsing through the stores, causing ruckus. And it was this little girl and her mother. They were over in the section looking at the makeup stuff and all of that. Mom was getting like something. I forget exactly what she's getting. But they were in that section. And I'm sitting there straightening up the shelves, you know, I'm doing that kind of stuff. And I'm looking down there and these little girls are just staring at this little girl. They had to be no more than like between 8 and 11 years old. They're looking at this little girl with her mom, giving her like the crazy looks, walking all close to her. And the mom just took her hand and was like, come on, you know. I'm like, what is that? It's that mean girl, negative, demonic spirit, and that is a learned behavior. The fact that these kids were out so late at night by themselves, number one, says a lot about how they're being parented. And then number two, the way they were, their demeanor, even with people who are younger, who are children, adolescents, when somebody has a mean, jealous, envious spirit, when somebody, I'm not saying these kids were envious, they're probably just being bad kids, but with women, when they have a negative, jealous spirit, you can feel that. You can feel that tension enter the room as they enter the room. It's like this heaviness just comes over the environment. If you have ever been at an event where you're enjoying yourself, you feel good, you look good, you're enjoying yourself, all it takes is for one negative woman, one jealous, hating, envious woman who has a mean, nasty, intimidating demeanor about herself to walk into the room. It's like the whole energy shifts. That's what I'm talking about. But I bring up about those children because I truly do believe it's a learned behavior. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the train and in public and I hear women cussing each other out, looking at each other, you know, just for random reasons. Nothing happened. It's just literally, I don't like her vibe. I don't like her energy. That happened to me one time where I was walking down the street and this lady, I never forget, she didn't know what I was going through, nor did she need to know. It's not her business. I was walking through, I think I was running late for my kids, and I was walking to where they were at the time. Running late, not feeling that well. I walked past this group of women, and I overheard one of them say, I don't like her energy. Why are you worrying about my energy as I'm walking down the street and you're standing outside of a beauty school? I'm guessing you on your break. You worrying about people's energy. Get that degree. Focus on what you're doing. It's like those kind of things. I know this level of realness in women, a lot of people are not accustomed to seeing. But these are the things that we go through as women. It's just that catty, snarky, blah. And that's the reason why I believe a lot of women refrain from having too many female relationships. And that brings me to my next point. How feminine relationships and friendships are very important. And I know they're far and in between. But in order to really get away from women who are jealous and negative, and to, not saying you're ever going to truly get away from them because there's always going to be a hater somewhere, but you don't have to entertain them. The people you keep closest to you should be women who are not going to shame you for doing well and are not going to try to make you feel bad some way because you went against the status quo. And just as I say that, women who try to shame you and are jealous and envious, they often have a crabs in a barrel mentality. They don't want to see themselves or you as an individual. And you can see this right now. This is a little bit off topic, but with the upcoming election, everybody wants everyone to think the same way. You're black, so you better be a Democrat because that's what we do. Hey, that's what we do. No, as women, as individuals, people who like to shame and jealous and envious spirits, they don't want you to be an individual. They don't want you to do anything differently than what your neighborhood is doing. If everybody in the neighborhood has a 24-inch, 54-inch bust-down wig with tights on, that's what you should be doing. If everybody in the neighborhood has 54-inch lashes, that's what you should be doing. If you come out the house wearing a dress opposed to wearing the tights and the t-shirt and the dirty scrubs or whatever people got on, you're going to be looked at as an oddball if you're around people who are intent on being mediocre. That's just what it is. And this has nothing to do with class. This has nothing to do with respectability politics. This has to do with the nasty, catty demeanor of a lot of women who can't accept the fact that not all women want to be neighborhood baddies. Not all women just want to be, you know, your local ghetto fabulous celebrities. All women don't want that for their lives. There are some women who truly want to be at peace with other women and have really girl bonding relationships. But it's hard to do that when a lot of women carry that jealous and envious spirit within themselves. So as women, it is our job to foster relationships with women who are, number one, like us. Yes, you don't want to be so hard up for friendships that you invite negativity, wickedness, jealousy, and envy into your life. When you begin to level up and get more confident and get more self-assured and spiritually grounded, it will often be a little bit lonely in the beginning for a little while because you no longer want to tolerate jealous, envious spirits just to say you have somebody around you. And you're also so focused on becoming a better woman that you just, if it doesn't feel right, you just don't want to do it. But when you come across women who are on the same path as you and they understand that, yeah, I'm different too, but because of my environment, I always felt like I had to hold it back. There's a lot of feminine suppression that is happening right now. There is a lot of women, especially black women, who are not like the typical black woman that people expect to see. There are a lot of black women who are not loud and obnoxious and ratchet and, you know, gaudy in the way they carry themselves and the way they dress themselves and all of that. But because what society likes to see in black women is the show. They want us to be a show. And when you're not like that, you're considered boring. Well, sometimes being a successful, beautiful, calm, and at peace woman, it's a little bit boring. It's a little bit lonely. But then when the people who are meant for you, when they come around, you will be better off. So as women, when you understand and when you recognize jealous, wicked, envious spirits, when you see people in your life who are constantly trying to shame you into being mediocre, you will take that period of loneliness, that period of just being by yourself, to truly understand that you deserve and you are worth more than being around people who are just tolerating you and not truly for you. See, when you begin to level up as a woman and truly lean into your femininity, and this is where femininity comes in, you understand that you're not desperate. I don't have to deal with this. You really develop that I don't have to deal with this mentality. And when you get that, that is an absolutely freeing feeling to have. That you no longer have to deal with people who want to bring up your past. You no longer have to deal with people who want to talk about where you came from and all of that. None of that stuff matters when you're trying to do better for yourself. And don't let jealous, negative people cause you to believe that because you came from a certain place, you can never get any further than where you are right now. Okay? Like and subscribe to the channel and share this content. Hit the notification bell so that you're aware when I post a brand new video. If you watch this video until the very end, I absolutely appreciate you. Hit the like button, buy the books, and make a donation to the channel if you like. I appreciate how you support this womanhood work. Take care.